Dark Chosen Ones, you already have the keys to the fifth dimension rare gift. Have you ever felt like you didn't belong here? Like no matter how hard you tried to fit into this reality, something inside you kept pulling you elsewhere, somewhere deeper, darker, but also strangely more true. If you've experienced this quiet ache, this sense that there's a veil over the world and only you can feel it, then you might already be one of the Dark Chosen Ones. And no, this isn't some fantasy, some label to make us feel special. This is a calling. A rare, painful, divine calling. One that the vast majority will never understand. Most people are too busy chasing comfort, validation, and external success to notice the invisible keys that were placed in their souls at birth. The fifth dimension is not a place you travel to with your body, it's a frequency you awaken into with your being. But here's the catch, those keys you were born with. They're forged in suffering, in silence, in rejection, in the deep nights when you whispered to the stars, "Why am I even here?" The universe heard you, and it was never ignoring you, it was preparing you.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
I know what you're thinking. If I'm chosen, why does it hurt so much? Why has my life been filled with so many shadows? Why do I see the truth others are blind to, and yet feel so alone in carrying it? Because the way to the fifth dimension is a paradox. You must descend before you ascend. You must lose before you gain. You must be shattered before you can be opened. We, the Dark Chosen Ones, are not meant to fit into this world because we are here to rewire it. But before you can rewire a broken system, you must first see the cracks. And that means being born sensitive, empathic, intuitive, and often misunderstood. Your sensitivity is not weakness, it's your radar. It picks up on the energies, the lies, the pain, the frequencies that others numb themselves to. You see what others deny. You feel what others escape. And that is your gift. But the challenge is this: if you don't understand your gift, it will destroy you. You will think your darkness is a curse. You will believe that your depression is a flaw instead of a message. You will mistake your detachment for apathy, when in truth is soul preparing to transcend the illusion. Have you ever noticed how the most powerful spiritual awakenings come not when we're meditating under waterfalls, but when we're on the bathroom floor, broken? That's because the portal to the fifth dimension is not always beautiful, it is brutally honest. It demands that everything fake within you dies. What if I told you that your trauma wasn't random? That the betrayals, the losses, the isolation, they were all part of a larger initiation? Would you dare to believe that the universe has never made a mistake with you? That you were meant to be different? That your shadow was never your enemy, but your unseen teacher? The fifth dimension is not about escaping this world. It's about seeing through it, realizing that the pain you endured was the exact pressure needed to crack open the seed of your higher self. But society doesn't teach this. It tells you to medicate your symptoms, to numb your truth, to silence your intuition. And yet, no matter how much you try to conform, that inner voice doesn't shut up. It whispers, it screams, it begs, wake up. You are more than this. And here's the wild part, you already have everything you need. The keys are inside you. They've always been. But like a treasure buried beneath layers of fear, guilt, shame, and programming, it takes work to dig them out. And that's what makes you rare. Most will never take the shovel. Most will never look within. But you're still here listening. That says everything. Do you remember the first time you felt the veil? Maybe you were a child, staring into the sky, feeling like home was somewhere else. Or the first time someone lied to you and you felt it, even before the words were spoken. Or maybe it was when you walked into a room and were overwhelmed by emotions that weren't yours. You didn't imagine that. You weren't broken, you were awakening. So why do we call ourselves the Dark Chosen Ones? because we were initiated through darkness, not the evil kind, but the sacred kind, the kind that strips away illusions, that forces us into solitude, that teaches us how to see in the dark. In a world obsessed with light, we were trained in the shadows. And that is why we can guide others to truth, because we've walked through the fire. We didn't read about it, we lived it. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Having the keys doesn't mean you've opened the door. The fifth dimension is available, but not guaranteed. You must choose it every single day. You must choose to see through the illusions, to not react from ego, to not fall back asleep. You must choose to remember that your emotions are messengers and that your suffering is sacred. You must choose to stop abandoning yourself. Let me ask you something deep. What would happen if, for one day, you treated every painful memory as a sacred teacher? What if you stopped resisting your shadow and started listening to it? What would it tell you? Are you brave enough to hear it? You see, the journey to the fifth dimension isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. It's about reclaiming the pieces of yourself you were taught to hide. The strange parts, the sensitive parts, the powerful parts. Those parts are the keys. But the world is loud. It rewards fake smiles and punishes truth. That's why being a dark chosen one is so hard. You're not just waking up, you're waking up alone. At least at first. But know this, you are not truly alone. All over the world, others like you are waking up. Quietly, painfully, beautifully. We are the ones who feel too much, think too deeply, love too hard. And we are done hiding. This is not a coincidence. This is a convergence, a remembering. And the more you align with your true self, the self that knows, that remembers, the more you start vibrating in the frequency of the fifth dimension. And in that frequency, reality bends, time shifts, synchronicities explode, healing accelerates. You begin to co-create, not just survive. But first, you must trust the darkness. Not because it's safe, but because it's real. So, let me leave you with this. What if you stopped waiting for permission to be who you really are? What if the pain you've endured was never punishment, but preparation? What if the keys have been in your hands this entire time, and you just forgot? Are you ready to remember? The hidden blueprint, why your pain was the key all along. Let's talk about pain, not the surface level kind, not the scraped knee or heartbreak, the feel seen a weak kind. I'm talking about soul deep pain, the kind that lingers in your bones, the kind that makes you question your own existence, the kind you carry in silence because no one around you seems to understand the gravity of what you feel. That pain isn't useless. It's not random. It's not even a mistake. It is the blueprint. It is the map, the code, the sacred text etched into your being. You weren't punished. You were initiated. Ted. We live in a world that teaches us to run from pain. We're told to avoid it, numb it, bury it, or label it as weakness. But what if pain isn't the enemy? What if it's the compass? Have you ever noticed that your most profound awakenings, your most honest realizations, came right after your darkest nights? That's because pain destroys illusions. It doesn't lie. It doesn't sugarcoat. It forces you to face what's real. And in that confrontation, something ancient and powerful within you begins to stir. You remember who you are, not the version society sculpted, but the raw, eternal self buried beneath all the conditioning. You see, every scar on your soul holds a story, and every story holds a frequency. When you stop resisting your pain and start decoding it, you begin to hear the language of your higher self. That language speaks through patterns, through triggers, through heartbreaks and breakdowns. The very things you thought were destroying you were actually refining you. Every time you were betrayed, you were being taught discernment. Every time you were rejected, you were being pushed back to your own worth. Every time you were abandoned, you were being led back to your own presence. There is no awakening without discomfort, no rebirth without death. And if you're honest with yourself, you've always known that you were being prepared for something more, haven't you? Even in your worst moments, hasn't there always been a whisper, a flicker of knowing that this wasn't the end? That something was waiting on the other side of all this pain. That whisper is real. That flicker is the light of the fifth dimension calling you home. But here's the paradox. To activate the keys within you, you must walk directly into the storm. That doesn't mean wallowing in your suffering. It means learning from it, sitting with it, asking it what it's trying to teach you instead of trying to escape. That's where most people fail. They run too soon. They medicate too quickly. They drown out the message with distractions. But not you. You're still here. And that means you're ready. The fifth dimension is not something you earn, it's something you attune to. And you cannot attune to a higher frequency while still rejecting the parts of yourself that carry the codes. Your shadows hold your secrets. Your wounds hold your wisdom. Your pain holds your power. When you stop trying to fix yourself and start honoring your journey, you begin to rise. Not because you're becoming someone better, but because you're becoming someone truer. And let's be clear, this isn't about romanticizing trauma. It's about recognizing that your soul chose this path for a reason. That the obstacles weren't placed in your way, they were placed on your way. To sharpen you, to awaken you, to humble you, to open you. So here's the question. What if every painful event in your life was perfectly designed to activate a dormant part of your consciousness? What if your suffering was the teacher and you were the student who finally stopped resisting the lesson? What if, all along, the pain wasn't there to break you but to break you open? You've already survived what you thought would kill you. And you didn't come out of that just to go back to sleep. You came out of it to wake others up. Because now you carry something rare and light. Not the kind you get from reading spiritual books or quoting mantras. The kind you bleed for. The kind that radiates from souls who've been through hell and still chose love. That light is your currency in the fifth dimension. That pain-turned wisdom is your key. And here's the wildest truth of all. The moment you stop seeing your pain as punishment and start seeing it as preparation, the entire script flips. You stop asking why me, and you start asking what now. You stop hiding your scars and start using them as maps for others. You stop fearing the darkness and start walking through it with purpose. Because now you see what others can't. You feel what others won't. You hold what others seek. And that, my friend, is the mark of a dark chosen one. Crossing the threshold, how to activate your 5D frequency now. Now that you've begun to remember who you are, let's talk about what comes next. Because awakening is only the beginning. Real transformation happens when you start living from that awakened state, when you activate your 5D frequency and begin to embody it in every breath, every word, every choice. This is where the real power begins to unfold. And it's not found in some faraway place or mystical ritual. It's already in you, waiting, pulsing, whispering. The question is, will you listen? Activating the fifth dimension is not something that happens once and remains forever. It is a momentum and choice, a disciplined remembrance. It's the art of aligning your thoughts, emotions and actions with the truth of your soul, not the noise of the world. That means choosing inner stillness when chaos surrounds you, choosing love when fear screams louder, choosing honesty when the mask is easier. The 5D frequency is not about perfection, it's about alignment. It's about returning to the truth of your being again and again, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's painful. And that's the part most people miss. They think ascension means escaping reality. But the fifth dimension isn't floating in some cosmic bliss. It's being so present, so real, so rooted in your essence that you transcend the illusion without leaving the body. You bring heaven to earth, you become the bridge. And that's what we were always meant to be, portals in human form, walking reminders that something higher is possible. But how do you activate it now, in this world of noise, distractions, and fear? It starts with awareness. Begin to observe your reality as a mirror. Everything you react to, every trigger, judgment, or desire, is showing you where your frequency is anchored. Are you operating from survival or from sovereignty? From fear or from faith? From ego or from essence? The 5D path requires radical honesty. You must be willing to look at all the parts of yourself, especially the ones you've tried to disown, and bring them into the light of your awareness. Not to judge them, but to integrate them. Integration is the bridge. And it's not glamorous. It's messy. It looks like crying in your car after breaking a generational pattern. It looks like walking away from relationships that keep you small. It looks like holding space for your own anger without letting it poison your actions. It looks like choosing peace instead of proving your point. These are the everyday initiations no one claps for, but they are the exact moments you activate your 5D self. Because in the 5th dimension, energy is everything. Your thoughts are not just thoughts, they are frequencies. Your emotions are not just reactions, they are signatures. What you send out, you call back. And when you begin to live from this awareness, things start to shift. You begin to attract differently. Not because you're doing more, but because you're being more. You become a magnet for alignment, for truth, for synchronicity. Life begins to speak to you in symbols, in timing, in whispers that make no logical sense, but feel more real than anything you've ever known. And yet, this path is not for the faint of heart. To live in the 5D is to die to illusion daily. It means letting go of identities you've clung to for safety. It means trusting your inner voice when the world laughs in your face. It means walking away from comfort to follow a calling no one else can hear. But if you're reading this, you've already begun. Your soul is already attuned to the next level. That's why the old world feels so unbearable now. That's why the lies are louder, the distractions more tempting, the illusions more seductive. Because they are fighting for your attention. But you know better. You can feel the difference. And once you've tasted the 5D frequency, you can't go back. Not really. You can pretend, you can numb, you can delay, but the knowing doesn't leave. It waits, patiently, like a quiet flame inside your chest. So here's what you must understand. The 5D isn't a destination. It's a choice, a vibration, a way of being, and you don't need anyone's permission to access it. You don't need crystals, retreats, or gurus. You need presence. You need courage. You need commitment to your own truth. So ask yourself this now. What would my life look like if I stopped betraying my intuition? What would change if I stopped negotiating with my fears? What if I finally said yes to the version of me I've always known I'm meant to be? You already have the keys. The only thing left to do is use them. The final door, becoming the portal for others to awaken. So here we are, at the edge of the final door. You've remembered the pain wasn't punishment. You've begun to activate your 5D frequency. And now there is one last step. One final turning point. And it's not about you anymore. Not fully. Because now that you've awakened, now that you've stepped into the truth of who you are, the final step is becoming a mirror, a portal for others to awaken to. This is the sacred responsibility of the dark chosen ones. We are not here to hoard the light. We are here to become it, to embody it so deeply that our very presence shifts rooms, softens hearts, and awakens dormant souls. You don't need to preach, convert, or convince. That's not the 5D way. In the 5th dimension, Your energy speaks louder than your words ever could. People feel you before they hear you. They sense something different, something ancient and true, and that difference is your alignment. But to hold this frequency, you must protect it, not with walls, but with discernment. You must learn to walk between worlds, the physical and the energetic, with grace and clarity. You'll need to be grounded enough to function in this world, but free enough to never be trapped by it again. And that means setting boundaries, honoring your needs, and staying connected to the truth, even when others pull you toward illusion. You will be tested, not to break you, but to refine you, to see if you're really living what you say you believe, to see if you'll choose love when anger is easier, to see if you'll stay open when shutting down would feel safer. These tests are not punishments, they are initiations. Every moment is an invitation to be the frequency you wish others would rise to. That is what it means to be a portal. And here's the paradox: you don't have to be perfect. In fact, your imperfections are what make you relatable. It's your scars that make you trustworthy. People don't awaken because they see someone flawless, they awaken because they see someone real. Someone who's been through the fire and didn't lose their soul. Someone who felt the darkness and chose to carry the light anyway. So, what now? How do you actually be the portal? Start small. Speak truth when it's uncomfortable. Be kind when it would be easier to be cold. Listen when others are only yelling to be heard. Anchor presence in moments of chaos. Create art, write, build, serve, share. Whatever your soul is called to do it with intention. Every action, no matter how small, ripples out into the field. And in the 5D, those ripples become waves. You're not here to save the world. That was never the mission. You're here to light it up, to remind others that they can save themselves. You do that by being who you really are. No more masks, no more shrinking, no more waiting. The world doesn't need another copy, it needs your unique, unfiltered essence. That's your medicine. That's your frequency. That's your gift. And maybe you still doubt it. Maybe you still wonder if you're ready. But the truth is, if you weren't ready, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't have resonated with these words. You wouldn't have felt what you felt reading them. That feeling, that resonance, that's your soul remembering. That's the door cracking open. So now I ask you one final question. If not now, when? If not you, who? You already have the keys. You always have. The only thing left is to walk through. Welcome home, Portal Keeper. The world is waiting.